Right, welcome back to News Sources. Before the break, we asked you, have nurses betrayed doctors by agreeing to a government deal? You can tweet me at Julie Masiga, at Sharon_Momanyi. The hashtag is News Sources and at KTN News. Now, moving on, the civil war in Syria that has seen a 5-year battle between rebel forces and soldiers allied to President Bashar al-Assad is about to come to an end in Aleppo. Aleppo, a historically and economically significant city in Syria, has been the face of the Syrian war. It has also been practically divided in half, with the east side controlled by rebels and the west by the regime. As of yesterday, regime forces had conquered up to 90% of the east side, ending the battle for the city. This war has seen up to 400,000 civilians killed. Did the international community do enough to help the humanitarian situation?
We would welcome any arrangement that would allow people to live safely in Aleppo who want to stay, and to leave safely Aleppo for those who want to leave. Obviously, we would welcome that. The only way we get to peace in Syria is getting the opposition and the regime to sit down together and try to work this out. That's the way to get a peaceful, sustainable future for Syria. And the United States has been and remains very much in the lead in the international community in trying to bring that about.
Right, what we're seeing there is a lot of talk. We have talked about the situation and talked about it, and people have met in Geneva and all sorts of places trying to come to an agreement which has never held. And now finally they have this deal to evacuate, but there's recently, as 5 hours ago, they were still fighting in Aleppo. And we've seen this happening in Cambodia, in Iraq, in Rwanda, in Darfur, in Bosnia, and we've sat back and watched. And this time it's even perhaps more heartbreaking because people are tweeting their goodbyes from Aleppo. And you're seeing children injured, being carried by small babies, being carried by their parents, and men and women, just completely hopeless. Faith, what could we have done as an international community?
It's actually, the story of Aleppo is very heartbreaking. I mean, if you even on social media, just looking at those children, the way they are really helpless. And I think the most frustrating thing is the fact that they actually had an evacuation plan, to start today, and but still nothing is happening. I think to some stage the international community has failed to chip in and assist. Of course, the United Nations Security Council has really played a role, but I mean, all the international community, still the people, the civilians in Aleppo still feel that even the UN Security Council has not really done enough, because we have seen this problem for the past 5 years. And so it looks like there's really no commitment. And even after the UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon said that we need to do everything within our power to end the fighting, to end the atrocities, nothing is going on. And more worrying is the fact, I actually would wish, and I expected that the UN member states would probably have come together, of course under the umbrella of the UN Security Council, because there are so many member states, and Kenya is a member state of the UN Security Council, to just look at what can be done really to solve this mess. But again, remember that there even people were trying to help, the situation, the humanitarian, forces are being attacked, the subject of attack. So it's really difficult.
Right,
but also you can't separate this battle. It is a very political situation there.
Right.
And even as we expect the United Nations to be the humanitarian face, that union of nations, really, we have veto powers at the United Nations Security Council. Russia has been supporting, the regime.
Right.
And we have the United States also supporting the rebel groups. So really, you cannot separate that, the interests that come with all this, the allies and whatnot.
So it's almost like a proxy war happening in Syria.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So even as I'm saying we're not doing anything, there are countries actively doing something, which is actually dragging the situation down.
Yes. In fact, as Sharon has mentioned, you have a situation where Russia and the US are busy fighting proxy wars using the people of Aleppo and Syria to a larger extent as their their battleground. And this is why this war has dragged on for so long. The ceasefire was broken by opposition. This is the stories that we've come across, that the ceasefire was broken by opposition militants, and then the Assad regime began just shelling the strongholds where the remaining strongholds where they are, and that is a direct violation of any convention that would have especially the Geneva Convention. Over and above that, the rebels have been using the civilian population as human shields, and that's my interpretation of it. So you can understand where Assad's regime is coming from, that you cannot separate combatants from civilians, and that's why there is indiscriminate shelling of opposition areas. But over and above that, we're talking about a humanitarian situation, and yet the same country, the U.S., talking about we need to think about the people, the citizens of Aleppo, the civilians. You've been supporting the opposition, and you have actually helped them kill off quite a number of people. And then again with Russia. So as Sharon has pointed, how can you have the United Nations Security Council have two members with veto powers busy fighting proxy wars, using the people of Aleppo as their battleground, and expect that the international community should react in a humanitarian manner? As Faith has pointed out, even the aid workers have been bombed. By the same member states of the United Nations. So it's a pity. It's a real pity, and it's a very sad situation where basically the rest of the United Nations member states can't do anything about it.
And we've even seen some people saying that this could be Rwanda all over again. Where you say years later said we did very little, too late. We also saw from those tweets there, just the civilians tweeting that tomorrow will be too late. Some of them already resigning. So really a crisis on the humanitarian front, but also just pointing out the extent to which nations need to be more decisive in intervention policies in such situations. But then how do you transcend such political barriers?
Exactly, because it's a political war at the end, because they perhaps have to remove Assad for there to be any kind of progress.
I just wanted to say this. I know the buzz has gone off, but the fact that you now have a United States president-elect who is very pro-Russia might signify an end to the proxy wars that are going on in Syria. We can only hope.
Okay, let's move on now to an apolitical subject and back to the country. Let's come back to Kenya now, to a story that provoked a lot of reactions. This is about a partnership between the Health Ministry and community-based organizations to set up gay-friendly clinics where men who have sex with men in Kenya can get health services without fear of discrimination and judgment. Some people say this is a positive move, yet others feel that it is promoting homosexuality. So which way is it? What do you feel about this move to have gay-friendly clinics?
How does having healthcare promote homosexuality? I mean, it doesn't even make sense. I think that it's time that we accepted that there are parts of our society that even though we don't like and we don't appreciate their orientation and how they live their lives, they do deserve the same amenities and rights that we also enjoy. And that includes access to healthcare. It would, in fact, bring down the HIV prevalence rate. I believe that is a serious situation that needs to be addressed. You have to remember, men who have sex with men also have sex with women. So if you do not provide health care for
an all-round,
exactly, it's very few gay men who are strictly off women, and a lot of men are even married. We call it having a beard, where the wife is the one, the beard, hiding.
I think it's a really it's a move in the right direction, because talking of the stigma alone, I was just thinking of a gay person. There's one of the guys who said, actually, when I have gay-related health problems, it's really difficult for me to even visit a health center. You would actually do that, but then what the doctors do is that they don't even examine you, because of the stigma that is
gay-related health problems?
Yes,
yes. What is a gay-related health problem?
I think my mind kind of got stuck on that one.
Injuries, certain kinds of STDs, and those are problems.
Yeah,
have.
That are unique
the
to
stigma
MSMs.
exactly.
Right. Okay.
And the stigma associated with that is really high. And I agree with Betty that having these health clinics will also bring down the HIV prevalence rates, because in 2015, for instance, alone we had about 18.2%, prevalence rate among MSMs, and this is just about 3 times the general population. So it speaks to the weight that this whole issue actually has. And so as much as there are people who do not agree with homosexuality, it's only right to offer
it's a basic human right.
It's
a basic human right.
Exactly.
I'll say this, that it goes to show that sort of reluctance to provide healthcare goes to show that it's cuts across the board. You'll find the same reluctance to provide reproductive healthcare to women, like for instance, the provision of morning after pills or birth control. You'll find the same reluctance to do that even for young women because they're not married, and the same reluctance to provide healthcare is seen for gay men.
But speaking of homosexuality, it's interesting that people use religion as their justification. And recently we've been seeing this thing about gifting pastors this, that, or the other, where people tend to have people's own religion has been skewed in the sense that it doesn't seem to be pure anymore, and yet that is always the fallback plan when it comes to saying it is wrong, it's a sin.
It's very weird. It's very ironical, because it's even now very difficult to differentiate what is actually religious from what is not. I mean, on the other hand, we're saying that as religious people and as Christians especially, we should not worship material things. For instance, like you rightly
then again,
put
you have
it.
to, at the very least, not everybody subscribe to the same religion. So you have got to have policies and ways of doing things that transcend religious.
Yeah, there should be
differences.
equity across the entire population,
right?
Whatever your sexual persuasion is.
I'll say this, and this is for, and I know the buzz is about to go off, but I'll say this, yeah.
Kind of almost always.
It's always on me, but anyway, Jesus Christ did not speak about homosexuality, and
it is in the Bible, though.
Yes, but where we're saying we're Christians is because we're followers of Christ. Okay, so
right,
he did not.
I'm going to have to cut you off.
Well, no. Let me finish it. So, and neither did Muhammad. And in that regard, we have to consider that if Christ died for all, he also died for homosexual people.
Right.
If Muhammad came to bring the revelation for all, then that includes homosexual people.
That's true. Controversial.
It's a fact.
but agreed. Now moving on, November 25th to December 10th marks the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, with countries around the world showing solidarity in different ways to raise awareness. In Uganda, policemen shocked the region in the manner in which they chose to show solidarity with women. They took to the streets wearing heels and carrying handbags in a walk that was organized by civil society groups to mark the cause. Is that amazing, or is that amazing?
Very amazing. I mean, and for being Uganda, we shouldn't be really amazed, because we have seen, I think back in 2013, and policewomen were being asked not to wear lipstick. I mean, really, and not color your hair.
In Kenya?
In Uganda,
right.
Yeah, for instance, and you not color your hair, and I mean, what does it have to do with performance anyway?
But my question is this: is walking in heels really a true representation of what women go through on a day-to-day basis?
I think you'll know that I don't wear heels. Yeah?
Well, it's a start. Betty was saying earlier, my colleague Betty Kielo, that those heels are actually, they should have tried 6 inches to get the full.
Yes, to understand the true pinch.
But over and above that, Uganda, when you're sending your police to wear the heels, and of course it was, in support of the NGOs and the activism for that day, but the same country has laws against wearing miniskirts and all sorts of misogynistic stuff going on. The same Ugandan police, is it the week before? Oh yeah, and Joy Doreen Bira was in Kasese when this happened. They stripped women naked and they beat them up. So then the next week you're wearing high heels
for women.
But isn't it then a step in the right direction to see these very same policemen? They must have felt that it was, how a policeman would think that it was almost lowering themselves to wear women's shoes.
I think so. I think it comes from a good place, ladies.
Yes.
I mean, to start that, I mean, how many men would take this kind of challenge?
They did that because they wanted to sort of show solidarity with their police women, because in Uganda, you know, police women are really affected. But like Betty said, I mean, we're not seeing a true reflection of, you know, gender equity, or, you know, women being, how do I put it, you know, protected. You know, the case of Joy Dorimbire is a perfect example.
Right.
And stripping women, you know, naked.
So would it have made more sense if perhaps they stayed home, did the dishes, changed the nappy,
Oh, yes.
and cleaned the house?
That
Would have made a lot more. In fact, if they came together, you know, like I know that this was not an entire police force walking around in high heels, because those are many pairs of shoes, but which they would not wear afterwards. Yeah. So, but if they came together and they said, we're going to this women's shelter or this girls' school, and we're going to cook for you, we're going to serve you, we're going to kneel down the way women kneel down in Uganda, you know, and we're going to just for one whole day live the life of a Ugandan woman, then I would be like, okay, now you're trying. But you know, walking a few kilometers in high heels, listen, even I struggle to do that. So
Okay, so we had the 16 days of activism against. Did you feel that kind of, or any kind of support in the country as we wind up, you know, across board, so that it was not just a you know, women's agenda? Because actually it's gender, not just a women's you know, based violence.
Do you mean in Kenya?
In Kenya,
In
yes.
Kenya, no, there was no sense of, and I personally did not feel that there was an impact. I felt that the same voices from the each time that this sort of activism is done, the same voices are being raised. We do not have, you know, sort of a significant change.
We're still really far.
And I think moving forward, we should be a little more optimistic about this gender equity thing. But before we asked you, have nurses betrayed doctors by agreeing to a government deal? Have nurses betrayed doctors by agreeing to a government deal? 60% of you say no, 40% of you say yes. So that has been our Twitter poll for today. We thank you so much for joining us. All right, I think I can read a few tweets that have come in today. And
maybe I'll just start with one here.
Right.
That Majani Chasia says that nurses without doctors is a stale situation. The sixth president, he calls himself, says that it is called divide and rule. Maybe one more. Okay, that's what I get.
Right, Frederick Mokano, I think he's saying you can only be betrayed if the course you are pursuing is the same. That is not the case.
All right. So I guess that's where we wind up today's show. Many thanks for watching. My name is Sharon Mumanyi. Thank you so much, ladies, for joining us tonight, and have a good night.
Thank you. I'm Julie Masiga. Next time, same time. I always get this wrong. Next week, same time, same place. Thank you for watching. Good night.
Good night.